She secretly dated Donald O'Connor. No, why Lana Turner was born. Her real name was Julia Jean Mildred Frances Turner on February 8, 1921, in Wallace, Idaho. She was a small-town girl with a sad past. Her father was killed when she was a kid, and she moved with her mom to California, looking for a better life. Lana became a movie star goddess whose beauty, sexiness, and interesting personality amazed people around the world. Turner's big break came in 1937 with a small but memorable part in They Won't Forget, where she played a teenage murder victim. It was in this movie that she wore a tight sweater, getting her the nickname the Sweater Girl, and right away becoming a famous sex symbol. But Lana was much more than just a pretty picture or fashion star. She was a serious and growing actress who slowly took on harder and more emotional roles, leading to some of her most praised performances in movies like The Postman Always Rings Twice, 1946, where her acting as a dangerous woman of Pusey John Garfield stays one of the most exciting and important performances in the history of dark movies. Her ability to mix being fragile with being tricky made her a master of this type of movie and set an example for many actresses who came after. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, Turner worked with some of the best directors and leading men of her time, starring in hits such as Ziegfeld Girl 1941, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde 1941, Slightly Dangerous 1943, and the colorful drama Imitation of Life 1959, the last movie in which she played a struggling actress and mother, showed not just her beauty, but also her emotional skills and depth as a performer. The movie was a huge success and remains one of her most lasting works, touching audiences for its themes of race, motherhood, and personal giving up things. INT, 1960s and 1970s. Although the parts get fewer and less important, Turner stayed an interesting person in both movies and TV. She appeared in movies like Madam X, 1966, for which she got a Golden Globe nomination, and later in popular TV shows as Falcon Crest. She also went on successful stage tours and public speaking trips, proving her ability to do different things and staying power in an industry known for its quick attention span. Lana Turner, one of Hollywood's most glamorous and famous stars of the Golden Age, was as well known for her crazy personal life as was for her screen presence. Over her lifetime, she got married 8 times to 7 different men, a pattern that Becca Mia, symbol of both the passionate intensity and the romantic problems that described much of her off-screen life. Despite her fame and beauty, Turner's search for lasting love was hard to find. Her husbands include band leader Artie Shaw, actor Lex Barker, and restaurant owner Stephen Crane, whom she married twice, along with several others who were attracted to her charm. But in the end failed to bring her the home happiness she wanted. Looking back later in life on the difference between her young dreams and her real experiences, Turner said one of her most famous and sad quotes, "My goal was to have one husband and 7 children, but it turned out to be the other way around." This comment captured the irony and heartbreak that so often came with her search for stability in the glamour and chaos of Hollywood. Perhaps the most shocking and tragic event in Turner's personal life happened in 1958. In an incident that got the nation's attention and permanently changed her public image. At the center of this scandal was Johnny Stompanato, a former U.S. Marine who had become a bodyguard and enforcer for famous gangster Mickey Cohen. Stompanato had been dating Turner, but their relationship was famously violent and marked by claims of emotional abusing physical violence. On the night of April 4, 1958, during a real heated fight between Turner and Stompanato in her Beverly Hills home, her teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane, who was only 14 years old at the time, stepped in, fearing for her mother's life and safety. Cheryl got a kitchen knife and stabbed Stompanato in what she later said was an act of protection. Stompanato died from the wound shortly after. And the incident exploded into a media storm, making front-page headlines across the country. Theft flowing legal. And public mess was huge. A highly publicized coroner sharing followed, during which Lana Turner gave an emotional testimony that fascinated the public and changed public sympathy in her favor. Cheryl's act was finally ruled a justifiable homicide, meaning no charges were filed against her, as the authorities decided Thatch had acted in defense of her mother, while Turner was legally cleared. The incident left a permanent mark on her life and career. Public fascination with the murder and the image of a beautiful, crying Turner on the witness stand cemented her status as a tragic Hollywood figure, a star whose personal demons often seemed to rival those of the characters she played on screen. In the years that followed, Turner stayed active in movies and TV. Though she was forever shadowed by the scandal and the emotional damage it caused on both her and her daughter. The murder of Johnny Stompanato and its surrounding circumstance became one of the most infamous episodes in Hollywood history, and lasting story of glamour, violence, motherly instinct, and personal tragedy further blurred the line between Lana Turner's movie roles and her real life in the golden era of Hollywood, whereas studio bosses had nearly unlimited control over their stars and public image, was as carefully planned Asa Busby Berkeley number. Some love affairs bloomed in the shadows. One subsequent romance involved two bello Veticons of the silver screen. The glamorous Lana Turner and the endless liquorming song and dance man, Donald O'Connor. For decades, whispers went around about a brief but passionate love affair between the two during the early 1950s, but it was only years later, after both stars had passed their peak fame, that the truth began to come out. Not only had they dated, but they had kept it deliberately hidden from the public eye. The reason, as it turns out, was as complicated as Hollywood itself. At the time, Lana Turner was only the most recognizable faces in America, famous for her sultry beauty and a string of high-profile relationships. She was no stranger to headlines. Donald O'Connor, by contrast, was known for his boyish charm, perfect comedic timing, and extraordinary dancing talent, made famous in movies. Like Singing in the Rain, he was beloved by familiar audiences and seen as clean-cut and wholesome, the kind of performer mothers trusted and daughters adored. But that contrast, the dangerous woman and the boy next door, was exactly what made their relationship both exciting and, in the eyes of studio executive, pitly disastrous. The media and publicity machine had carefully crafted Lana's image as a dramatic siren, a woman whose life mirrored the high-energy passion of her movies. Meanwhile, O'Connor's brand was built on light-hearted comedy and traditional elitists. A serious romance between them would have clashed with the public images that had taken years and millions of studio dollars to build, according to close friends and former studio insiders who later spoke out. The affair began during the filming of a variety show appearance where both were scheduled to perform. Lana was taken with Donald's gentle wit and humility, qualities that stood in stark contrast to the possessive, violent men she had often dated in the past. Donald, for his part, admired Lana's strength and vulnerability beneath the glossy surface. They found in each other a rare kind of comfort, a sense of being understood away from the camera's glare. But as their connection deepened, pressure mounted. Lana was in the midst of navigating personal chaos. Her stormy relationships, including with abusive youngster Johnny Stompanato, had already made tabloid stories. Donald was under contract and feared the anger of his studio, which had strict morality clauses and viewed any inappropriate associations as a threat to box office appeal. Even more complicated was the fact that both had children and reputations they were trying to protect from scandal. A public romance could have put at risk everything from endorsement deals to their very careers, so they met in secret. Dinner dates, imprivate homes, walks taken after dark, letters exchanged with no names signed. Their moments together were short but deeply felt. According to later accounts from Lana's daughter, Cheryl Crane, and O'Connor's biographer, there were nights when Lana would drive out to Donna's place just to talk for hours in the car. Parked where no one would see. It was romantic, yes, but also filled with a sense of sadness. Two people who felt they couldn't fully be together in light of day. The relationship couldn't survive the weight of secrecy. Both stars had comet-men-sand careers, pulling them in different directions, and the pressure of staying hidden took its toll. They quietly undid things, agreeing never to speak of it publicly. But the tenderness lingered years later. When asked in an interview about the one who got away, O'Connor reportedly paused and smiled sadly, refusing to name names. Lana, when pressed about her many love affairs, once remarked mysteriously, "There was a man who truly saw me for who I was, but not all stories are meant for thepries." It wasn't until long after both had stepped away from the spotlight that former associates began to piece together the fragments of their secret tremens. Studio memos, letters, and whispered memories from Hollywood insiders finally confirm. Fans had long suspected. What began as a quiet connection away from the cameras became one of the most touching, untold love stories of classic Hollywood. Short romance born no doubt of publicity, but in spite of it. In an industry built on illusion, Lana Turner and Donald O'Connor shared something beautifully real. And though it lived only in the margins of their biographies, it now stands as a touching reminder of the sacrifices stars made for the sake of image, and of the love that sometimes had to bloom in the shadows. Throughout her glamorous, beautiful, crazy life, Lana Turner kept certain personal habits that, while common in the Hollywood culture of her era, would finally take a toll on her health. For decades, Turner was known to be a regular drinker and a habitual cigarette smoker. Bad habits thoughts were deeply embedded in both the social fabric of the movie industry and her personal lifestyle. As one of MGM's brightest stars during the golden age of Hollywood, her public image was carefully crafted to reflect elegance and perfection. Behind the scenes, however, studio executives were constantly working to protect that image. In fact, during her years under contract with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, any photographs that captured Turner with a cigarette in hand were carefully brushed to remove the offending item, an early example of public relations damage control. At a time when smoking was widespread and even fashionable, especially among movie stars, the studio feared that such images could damage her wholesome or glamorous image, particularly among younger fans. As Turner entered her early 60s, a period in which many celebrities begin to rethink their lifestyles, she made a deliberate decision to stop drinking. A choice motivated largely by health concerns and a desire to maintain some control over her aging body. However, the grip of nicotine addiction proves harder to break. Despite numerous attempts and warnings from doctors, she was never able to quit smoking. A habit that had become deeply stuck after decades of continuous use. The long-term effects of this addiction would show up in devastating ways. In the spring of 1992, Turner received a diagnosis that would forever change the final chapter of her life: throat cancer. The news shocked both her fans and those closest to her. But in typical Lana Turner fashion, she responded with grace and defiance. In a press release that followed the diagnosis, Turner tried to reassure the public by stating that the cancer had been detected early and had not affected her vocal cords or larynx, a detail she made sure to emphasize. Perhaps in part due to her identity as a screen legend whose voice had long been part of her appeal. She underwent exploratory surgery in an effort to remove the cancerous tissue. But despite initial hope, the operation revealed that the cancer had already spread, going from her throat to her jaw and lungs. The diagnosis marked a grim turn. Turner then began radiation therapy, a physically draining process made more difficult by her age and overall physical condition. Nonetheless, in nearly 1993, she surprised many by publicly announcing that she was in full remission, a declaration that inspired hope among fans and seemed to confirm her enduring strength and resilience. But victory was short-lived. In July 1994, just over a year after her mission announcement, doctors confirmed that the cancer had returned. By then, the disease had advanced and her health began to decline more noticeably. Despite her weakened state, Turner summoned the strength to make one last public appearance in September 1994, when she attended the San Sebastian International Film Festival in Spain, where she was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award. The appearance was deeply emotional, both for Turner and the audiences who had adored her for decades. Though she had once been the very image of beauty and glamour, Turner used a wheelchair for much of the event, a touching symbol of the damage of illness, but also of her courage to face the public in her vulnerable state. Her presence at the festival was a bittersweet farewell. As it would be the last time she was seen in public. On June 29, 1995, less than a year later, Lana Turner passed away at her home in Century City, Los Angeles, at the age of 74. The cause of death was listed as complications from cancer. At her bedside during her final moments was her only daughter, Cheryl Crane, who later described her mother's death as a total shock. Cheryl noted that Turner had recently completed 7 weeks of radiation therapy and had actually appeared to be in better health, raising hopes that she might once again beat the odds. Her sudden decline was therefore all the more heartbreaking. In her will, Lana Turner left specific instructions for the distribution of her estate, but its contents became the source of legal and emotional drama, while Cheryl Crane and her longtime partner, Joyce Loy, whom Turner had also described warmly as a second daughter, did receive some personal belongings and a sum of $50,000. The bulk of Turner's estate, estimated at $1.7 million, was left not to her family, but to Carmen Lopez Cruz, her devoted maid and caretaker of 45 years. Cruz had stood by Turner's side for nearly half a century and had been especially helpful in caring for her during the final years of illness. Turner's decision to reward her loyalty in such a significant way reflected not just affection, but gratitude for a lifetime of service and companionship. However, this division of the estate did not go uncontested. Cheryl Crane challenged the will, likely feeling surprised by what she saw was a snub. The matter was further complicated when Cruz responded that a large portion of the estate had already been used up by probate expenses, attorney fees, and the huge costs of Turner's medical care, which had piled up during her long battle with cancer. The legal and financial fighting that followed added a bittersweet note to the end of Turner's life. A woman who had lived in the spotlight for decades, but whose final days were marked by illness, fading fame, and the complications of human relationships. Despite these challenges, Lana Turner remains an enduring icon, not only for her legendary beauty and screen presence, but also for the resiliency and dignity with which she faced her final years. Her death marked the end of a truly remarkable life, one shaped by triumph, scandal, survival, and ultimately legacy.